In this video, I'm going to teach you the 5 love languages. Love language is how each person feels loved. It turns out we all feel loved in a different way. If you don't know the 5 love languages, then you're going to have a lot of trouble in your long-term relationships and get into a lot of unnecessary arguments and fights because you don't understand that people feel loved in different ways. So this concept is from the book The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It turns out we all feel loved in different ways, and there are 5 different love languages. If somebody speaks to you in your love language, you will feel loved. If somebody doesn't speak to you in your particular love language, you won't feel loved. So here are the 5 love languages. The first love language is touch, which means you only feel loved if you experience touch, intimacy. You need touch in order to feel loved. The second love language is receiving gifts. Some people only feel loved if they receive gifts. If you're with a woman whose love language is gifts and you never give her gifts, then no matter what you do, she's not going to feel loved because she only feels loved when she receives gifts. The third love language is acts of service. So if somebody's love language is acts of service, they will only feel loved if you do an act of service for them, such as, hey, I spent 2 hours cooking this meal for you, or preparing this special birthday card for you, or, doing something, an act of service for you. Hey, I just spent the whole day fixing this thing so that you can be happy, so you can feel loved, like I'm taking care of you. So acts of service is another love language. The next love language is words of affirmation. Some people only feel loved if you say kind things to them. Hey, I appreciate you. Hey, you look beautiful. Hey, I'm so happy to be with you, right? You express your love through words. So again, another example, if you're with somebody whose love language is words of affirmation and you're sitting there giving them tons of gifts, but never saying anything nice to them, they're not going to feel loved because their love language is words of affirmation. Okay? And in a second, I'm going to show you how not knowing these 5 love languages causes a lot of unnecessary conflict. The final love language is quality time. Okay? Quality time. Meaning some people, in order to feel loved, they need to spend a lot of time together with you. So for the person whose love language is quality time, they're going to need you and her to spend a lot of time together. And if you're not spending a lot of time with her, she's going to feel unloved. So real quick, the 5 love languages are touch, gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation, and quality time. So you need to understand what your love language is, and you need to discover what your partner's love language is. So the way to discover what your love language is just to sit there and think, okay, what is the thing that I usually need most from a relationship? Okay? And intuitively, you're going to know, well, I just naturally, here's the thing, with our love language, we think it's everyone's love language. So if your love language is gifts, then you're naturally going to be like, well, of course, if you love someone, you're going to give them a lot of gifts, right? So you're going to think, oh, everybody's like that. But no, that's because you're like that, okay? And usually people have 2 more dominant love languages. So maybe your love language is a combination of gifts and quality time. So for you, your partner needs to give you gifts and spend quality time with you in order for you to feel cared about. But usually there's one that's more the most dominant, and then the second one is more secondary. So what's an important thing for you to do with women is you need to ask them. It's like you need to tell them first, just like I taught you about this 5 love language concept. You just tell them, hey, do you know about the 5 love languages? Do you know what your love language is? And then, you can discuss it, and she'll be like, oh, actually, you know what? I think my primary love language is touch, and my secondary love language is acts of service. Okay, so then you can be like, okay, well, in order to make her feel loved, I need to make sure that I'm including a lot of touch in the relationship, and I'm doing acts of service, such as, hey, let me drive you here. Hey, let me take care of this for you. Hey, let me fix your broken table, acts of service. Okay. And so um, in a relationship, conflict arises when one or both people don't feel loved. So let's take an example where the guy's love language is quality time and the girl's love language is gifts. Okay? And the girl is telling the guy, "Oh, you don't love me. You never show me that you love me." And she just goes off. And the guy's love language is gifts, right? So he's been loving her with gifts. He's been showering with her with gifts, right? Showering her with gifts. And then he's like scratching his head. He's like, "What do you mean I'm not showing you I love you? I'm always giving you gifts. What do you mean?" Because that's his love language. So he thinks that she's going to respond to gifts the same way he would, right? Because that's his love language. But her love language, we said, is what? Quality time. Okay? I'm not sure if I messed those up before, but let's just say his is gifts, hers is quality time. So if her love language is quality time and this guy's giving her gifts, but he's not spending that much time with her, well, no matter how many gifts he gives her, she doesn't feel loved because she needs quality time in order to feel loved. And so for years, some couples argue over the same thing for 30 years because the man is like, "Well, I'm doing all this stuff for you and you're always telling me I'm not showing you love." It's because he's showing love in the wrong love language, and vice versa. Maybe the guy's like, "You always neglect me, you blah blah blah," and the woman's scratching her head saying, "No, well, I'm always showing him love by whatever." People show love in their own love language. That's the mistake. Okay? In a perfect world, you end up with a woman who has the exact same love language as you. That's going to be the easiest, right? But in a lot of cases, people's love languages are different, and so you both need to make a conscious effort to love the other person in their love language so that they can receive the love. Okay? So this is a great conversation topic that is very interesting. I ask everybody, men and women, "Hey, what's your love language?" Right? I think it's interesting. I'm curious about it. And when I'm meeting a woman and I'm asking her what's her love language, that's going to help me communicate with her better throughout the seduction as well as throughout the relationship. So you can take everything in this video and use it as an interesting conversation topic with women. Where you can use the love languages is everywhere in relationships. This is great with intimate relationships. This is great with family, right? If you want to make your sister feel appreciated or your mother or your father, well, you figure out what is their love language and then you love them in that way. Even professionally, if you can figure out somehow what your boss's love language is, and you want to get some extra points or whatever, well, then you can communicate. Let's say you figure out your boss values gifts. Well, you can just get them little gifts. It doesn't have to be anything huge, right? Or if you realize your boss values quality time, well, then you can just spend some more time in meetings or whatever. So this is useful across the board, but believe me when I tell you, this is going to really escalate your understanding of relationships and dramatically decrease the unnecessary friction in relationships and misunderstandings. This is huge. This is huge. Okay, so big credit to Gary Chapman for discovering this. Excuse me, for discovering this. You want to memorize the 5 love languages, use them. Always make sure you identify what the love language is of your partner. Now, if you've been single for 2 years or more and you just feel like you're stuck against an invisible wall and you don't know why, that is because you have blind spots, okay? And if you want to reveal your blind spots, there is a 5-step process. So you can go over to jatjones.com, watch the free masterclass, and I'm going to point out some key blind spots that are keeping you single. And once you become aware of what you've been blind to in the past, you'll be able to attract, date, and keep your dream woman. So you can check the free masterclass over at jatjones.com. Take care. Peace.